Okay, so today we're going to be setting the end play on this cam. So there's really nothing that keeps it from floating back and forth in the block is this end plate here. And the way we set the end play is we measure the thickness of this retainer plate. They're usually 187. There it is. Okay, so the thickness of this plate is 187, and then the way you control the cam depth is you have this thing that's called a wetting band. So you measure the thickness of the wetting band. It's 191. So 187 on the plate, 191 here. That gives you 4 thousandths of end play. So that it's close, but it can't really move very much. And on this wetting band, the cam right here is not square cut. There's a radius at the bottom. So on this wetting band, there's a radius on this side. You can see that shine right there. That's the radius. So that side goes against the cam. The other side has a step on it. That goes towards the cam gear. So we put that radius side on. With that radius on, you can tell that the wetting band goes tight against the face of the cam. And the next thing is to put the woodruff key back in. Then you hold the retaining plate. It's held on by 2 small bolts. I use red Loctite on these bolts to make sure they don't back out. We did have a set come out one time, and it was on this engine, and everything got kind of mangled in there, and it chewed up that oil plug. But if we ever have to take that out, it'll be a pain. There's really no room behind the gear to put like a lock washer or anything in here, so that's why I use the Loctite. And then we'll torque it. Spec on a 1/4 inch bolt's only 10 foot-pounds, but that doesn't feel like enough for me, so. Now that that's torqued on, the next is installing the cam gear. For the cam gear I use green Loctite. This is number 640. The lighting in here, I don't know if you can see that. 640, and it's called sleeve retainer. So it works good between flat surfaces where there's not threads. So far on this engine we haven't had the cam gear come loose. This one has the hydraulic lifters in it, and about the max RPM on it so far is around 5,000, maybe 5,200 RPM, and it seemed to hold together. But on our other engine with the solid lifters, it goes up to over 6,000, and it puts a lot of stress on this square cut of the woodruff key in there. And I feel like when it strains against that square cut, it breaks the gear, loses the press, and then it falls off. So as soon as we get this on, we're going to pin this to give it a little more area to drive against. We're going to do that with a round pin. Make sure we're going on here the front way. There's the dot. There's the woodruff key. This is just a really long 7/16 bolt that has threads all the way up, and there's a nut on there. And we just use that to press it on. This is way easier if you have a crank in it with the crank gear. It doesn't want to rotate. But this engine got water in it and we hurt the crank, so it's at the crank repair shop getting the rod journals turned down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a wrench in here. Can you get me a normal 5/8? There the cam moves back just a tiny bit, and that's that 4/1000 of space, with that wetting band being thicker than the retaining plate. Lets the cam move just enough that it's not rubbing on anything, but yet keeps it in alignment so the lifters and the distributor drive gear all stay in place. So we'll have to set cam timing once we get the crank back in here, but for now we're basically got the cam gear back on, and now we're going to go to pinning it so that it has more of a chance to drive that and take some of the strain off of that woodruff key. I've always had all of them. This is the Comp 3224 timing gear, and it always lines up with the face of the cam. So if that's not lined up, I would double check to make sure you got it torqued in, but it should move a lot if that's not, if the face doesn't line up there. So to do the pin, what I have created is I'm going to use this as a fixture or a drill guide. I'm going to bolt it to the cam and then drill through this hole, which is on the split between the cam and the gear. I'm going to go opposite of the woodruff key at 90 degrees so that if I decide I want to put two in, I can put two at 180 degrees opposing each other and not be near the woodruff key. So now I've got this guide and the woodruff key is at the top, so 90 degrees offset from it. And on this hydraulic motor, I'm probably just going to put one in, but on the solid roller one that's in the 59, we'll probably end up putting both of them in, I think. I'll get the drill bit and I'll be right back. The pin that we're going to put in here is undersized, or is a 1/4 inch pin. This drill bit is undersized of a 1/4 inch, and then I will ream the hole that I drill with that with this ream, and it is, I don't know if you'll be able to read that or not, but it's 1/4 inch minus 1,000. So we'll have a 1,000th interference fit of that pin going into this hole that we end up with. This drill bit is much longer than we want. I don't want to drill all the way through the cam gear. It's 3/4 thick. The pin is only a 1/2 inch. So I made this spacer that only lets 1 inch of drill bit stick out. 1/2 inch for the guide, and then a 1/2 inch into the gear. I'm gonna do my best. This oil pan will have to come off to put the crank back in, but I'm still going to try to keep the drill shavings out of the oil pan as best I can, I guess. I don't know if I can get this in there or not. Okay, with our spacer on there, the guide on, we're gonna drill this and see how it goes. Probably be good to blow that out with an air hose or maybe some brake clean. If you got brake clean with a little straw
on it.
Okay, we'll blast it out of there with that. So the ream almost fits. I'm probably just going to go ahead and ream through this guide. Another 1/2 thou or so is not going to change it enough to make the drill wander, I don't think. There I can feel the bottom of the cam, so call that good. Can you get me one of those little 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch long dowel pins? So now we can take this guide off because we're done drilling and reaming. The little bitty guy, yep. That small ball peen hammer should be someplace. So what that gave us here is a hole that is on the split between the cam and the gear, and something with round corners, or without corners, but a round surface, and now the shear has been shifted to this round pin that's going to try to split it long ways instead of a cross cut. And that's my attempt at getting this cam gear to live a little longer and take that square corner away from it. I brought it over from the other side a little bit ago. Oh, I brought it all the way over here. Like I thought I had it over here. So for this, I'm just going to put red Loctite in there, so there's something keeping it in place. Put a dab in there and a little on the pin. This should not just fall right in there because I left hopefully a thousandths worth of interference, so I'm going to have to tap it in there a little bit. Basically flush with the face with an interference fit and the red Loctite. I think it should stay, but what we're going to do is modify the cover so that there's room to keep a bolt in there. As a stock cover, there's no room, even though the cam is threaded, to keep a bolt and washer in there. But I've got these, this is oversized, so it's bigger than the cam, and then be able to just bolt it on there and get it to stay. If the press fit doesn't change, I don't think it'll come loose, but as much trouble as we had on our Route 66 event, I'd like to leave that in there, but there's just no room inside the cover. So what we've come up with is we have this aluminum cover that we drilled a hole in, and I added this oil filler cap. I don't know that it needs to be removable, but because of the trouble we had, we want to monitor it. So now what will happen is when this cover goes on, I think it's on the water neck, but there's no gasket in the pan, so the pan's actually sitting too high. So I really don't think it's going to go in there without the gasket. But now, not that we can do a whole lot, but we can at least open that cap and visually inspect that to make sure that everything's staying where it should. And then with that oil cap, we can just, it's got an O-ring up inside there. So that's how it's going to finish out. And hopefully that dowel pin takes some stress off of that woodruff key, adds another place for it to drive that cam gear, or the cam. And that's our solution for this project. Now we'll go do it on the 59 with that solid cam and see how it works on that engine.